Welcome to Bleed Purple, a 10-part podcast about the 125-year history of Tarleton State University. Host Drew Myers will cover Tarleton's rich traditions, speak with notable alumni, and uncover the stories that give Tarleton its lasting legacy. Here's your host, Drew Myers.
Howdy, I'm Drew Myers, and this is the Bleed Purple podcast, telling the story of Tarleton State University through the stories of the people who bleed purple. It is my honor and privilege to sit down with Kari Haile. Kari is third generation Tarleton State University. Hi, Kari. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Now, the funny part about this is months and months ago, Kari and I sat down and we talked about a podcast celebrating all things Tarleton State University, and here you are as a guest on this podcast. Thanks for doing this, first and foremost.
Oh, you're so welcome. My honor.
So I've met a lot of people in Stephenville, and I've met a lot of people that went to Tarleton State University, and most people that I talk to bleed purple, but you bleed purple, Kari Haile.
It is tattooed on my hand, yes.
Okay, well, let's start there. Tell the story about the tattoo on your hand, because I remember when we first met, you shared that story with me, and I love that story. Tell the story of the tattoo.
Well, as a third-generation Texan and my son's a fourth generation, I had been prodded that I was the only member of the family without a tattoo. And my answer was always, it would have to be something meaningful and something that I wanted permanently affixed. And so as my son, Jay Wiley, got close to graduation, I came up with the idea of having my grandmother's graduation date and a purple drop of blood to share that we had been bleeding purple since 1917. And so we each got a tattoo right before he graduated from Tarleton.
And her son is in the studio with us today, so that's really cool. 4 generations deep at Tarleton State. I love it. And let me see the tattoo again. Right there, just south of her thumb on her hand. Read what it says.
It says, since 1917, with a little purple drop of blood coming out of the 7. And I put it there so when I go to shake hands with people, they'll notice it, and then we can talk about Tarleton.
I love how you didn't rush in and get a flower on your ankle or a peace sign on your, on your shoulder or something. You put some thought into that tattoo, and it means so much. And I love that story. I love it. Oh, yeah. So was there ever any question growing up that you possibly couldn't go to Tarleton State University or wouldn't go to Tarleton?
Growing up in Stephenville, like any small town, you have the I need to get away syndrome and I need to spread my wings. And so I left Tarleton for a while and I went to Texas Woman's University for a couple of years and then came back. And I think that time that I spent away in a different university environment made me appreciate Tarleton even more, because you don't know what you have until you don't have it. So seeing how other universities operate, and it was a great school, but it wasn't home and it wasn't my people.
Is that kind of the best way to describe Tarleton for you? It's home?
The gates are always open to come home. So yeah.
I love it. Talk about growing up in Stephenville and what that was like, and then talk about going to school at Tarleton. And I told you already, I want to hear a good Tarleton story. We can do that down the road, but just talk about growing up here and what Tarleton meant to this community.
Oh, I just feel it's a blessing to get to grow up in Stephenville, and whatever you grow up with is your normal. And so many of my friends' parents were professors. I used to joke that my daddy was the only one whose first name wasn't Doc. And and so you were around lots of smart children. A lot of my teachers' spouses were professors. And so it just created a culture where education is valued and education is promoted. Excellence was expected in our community and still is. And I think that comes from the university impact.
You believe Tarleton kind of sets that bar?
Oh, I mean, you have so many people that have achieved their PhD and so many people who have athletic excellence, and it just becomes an expectation when you grow up here that you'll be educated, you'll be successful, you'll seek excellence. And I think that permeates our whole community.
When you came back from Denton to go to school at Tarleton, what did you study? You do real estate in town now. You have your own brokerage.
Yes.
What did you study, though, while you were going to school?
I came back and worked on my graduate studies to be a teacher. And so I graduated in 87 at the peak of a economic downturn in Texas. And my dad encouraged me to get my teaching certification because he said the state would always pay teachers. And so I did that and enjoyed a career teaching. And at that time, Tarleton was so renowned for their reading program that, like at that time, the Waco ISD would only hire Tarleton teachers because they wanted that program in their reading program. And so I became a language arts reading teacher and felt like I got such a good background here and carried that. I taught in the Stephenville ISD and just got to come full circle with how the two work together.
Sure. How long did you do that before you jumped into real estate?
Oh, I started real estate about 9 years ago. So I had a good run of teaching 6th grade through 12th grade.
Oh, God bless you for that, for
hey,
sure.
Yeah, I'm a little tough to scare at this point in my life.
Okay, so let's go back to your time here at Tarleton. It's time, Kari Haile, to give me some good Tarleton stories. And I ask you this question because I've heard some of these stories. I want to know the characters involved. I want to know all of the things around these stories because they're entertaining, to say the least.
Thank you. I hope that our statute of limitations has run out on some of the stories from our good times here. You can't beat a place where I remember seeing my husband for the first time. He had on a pink shirt and was standing in front of the ag building. And I asked someone, "Who's that?" And this friend of mine looked at me and said, "If you needed to know Jim Ed Haile, we would have already introduced you." And I said, "Challenge accepted." And here we are. A long time later, he proposed to me in front of the library. And it's our place. It's part of our story.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
And since then we've gone through graduation with my son. We've gone through silver taps to celebrate my mom. It's a life cycle kind of place.
Yeah, you definitely bleed purple for sure. Seeing your husband on campus, proposing on campus, you have a tattoo on your hand. I mean, all the things. What is something that happened while you were going to school here that really stood out to you, that really kind of set the hook and made you fall in love with the school?
Dr. Thompson coming here changed not only the university but our town, because he really lit a fire. He awakened an energy at Tarleton that spread into the community. And my first semester here in 1983, he was new as well. And getting to watch him create the Plowboys, getting to sing the school song standing beside him in the football stands, him knowing your name and stopping you on campus. And I see so much of that in Dr. Hurley now and the way he relates to students and interacts on campus. And, that changes the way you feel about the university when the president knows your name.
Sure, absolutely. What are some of the endearing characteristics of this school? Let's say you're talking to a friend and they're like, "Oh, my son's about to graduate from high school," and they're thinking about Tarleton. How would you, somebody that bleeds purple, sell them on it?
I think Tarleton is a relational place, not the transaction of exchanging money for education. I think when you come here, you get set up to build relationships. I think the program, not just through the programs, but the people who are here. And I think we have so many alumni on staff that feel the way I do about their school, and they want more people to get into that. I used to tease my husband when he was teaching ag in the Denton area that he was the best recruiter in North Texas for Tarleton State, and his students would come down here and go to school and then come back and tell him, "It's as good as you told me it would be." And because we love it, and then we share it with other people, and that continues, whether we're at a tailgate and interacting with students or walking across campus and need directions because nothing looks quite like it did 35 years ago. it's the people and the relationships.
Creating ripple effects, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it is a little sappy sounding, but it's a family, and people here treat you that way.
So think back when you were going to school, some of the relationships that you created. Obviously, your husband, you saw him standing outside the ag building in his pink shirt. Yeah. But you have lifelong friendships that you developed here at Tarleton, don't you?
I keep in contact from people who were in my peer group. We didn't have duck camp back in the day, but we had peer groups. And I could call at least 3 of those people right now, and they would come to my rescue. Last night at the alumni reception at the rodeo, I saw 2 people that were in my peer groups when I was a peer advisor, and we still stay in contact. One of them is one of my clients now. So it's a lifelong relationship, not just a 4-year situation. And I always encourage people when they say, "Oh, I'm going to send my kid to a junior college because it's cheaper, and then they can go to the school where they'll graduate." And I say, send them where they'll finish if you can afford it. Because when you're scared and 18 years old and arrive on campus, you bond with the people that you meet. And you're like a band of brothers that are going to make it out alive together. And, and when you're young and scared, those people matter. By the time you're 20 or 21 years old and a junior, you're a little more independent and don't need a support group like you do as a freshman. And Tarleton does such a good job of being and providing that support group and mentoring students throughout the process.
I don't think I've ever asked one of our guests this question. I mean, this is early on in the Bleed Purple podcast story, but I'm going to ask you, what does it mean to you, 3rd generation, your son's 4th generation, Texan? What does Bleed Purple mean to you, Kari Haile?
It means that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We are a part of an organization we can be proud of. It means so much to me that we talk about so many 1st generation students now at Tarleton, and I'm such a big proponent of that. But I realize how fortunate I am that my grandmother graduated from college in 1917, and she provided a means for her daughter to graduate from college at the end of the Depression. And then that same family provided for me to go to this school. And what it does for economic opportunity, what it does for your self-confidence and your independence in life, that's huge. That there's been a university in our town that provides that, not just to my family, but there's got to be lots of families that share my story. And my family couldn't have done it without Tarleton.
Sure.
And that's a huge gift. And then we provided for our sons to go here.
So talk more about your grandmother and her graduating from Tarleton, because I think you and I talked about this a little bit. I mean, was a pretty big deal, right?
She graduated from Tarleton before she had the right to vote.
That's what you told me, yeah.
And when you think about what women weren't allowed to do in 1917, and here she was going to school, and she studied Latin and German. And I asked her when I was a young teenager, "What did you plan to do with that?" And she said, "Kari John, young ladies of my station didn't intend to do anything. We simply intended to be educated."
Whoa. That's a very powerful statement.
Yeah. And, because there really weren't a lot of opportunities for women to have careers, and when you stop to think about that she wasn't offered opportunity to put it into practice, but it was still important to be educated. And, and that set her apart. And I always knew she was different, and other people's grandmothers weren't like her. And, she had worked to set herself apart.
And then your mom went here.
My mom went here, and her story is great because she started to college in the fall of 1941. And she had graduated from Lincolnville High School, a little tiny class, never been to a football game, never been to a pep rally. And she thought she had died and gone to heaven. And she was a beautiful redhead and quickly discovered that the Corps of Cadets here at Tarleton were like a whole new world. And she promptly broke up with my dad, who had been her high school boyfriend, and enjoyed the fall semester and went to all the games and all the social events that she could, work into her schedule. And then she took her last semester exam on December 6th, 1941, and left campus. And then the next day, Pearl Harbor was attacked. And she said on December 7th, she didn't really appreciate what the Japanese had done to her. But when she came back to school in January and the men were gone, she understood war and
Right.
and how it hit her at home. And, and it kind of changed the course of things. And she worked hard to get her business degree. And eventually, there were more men on campus after that spring semester. But she had established herself as a strong student and ended up being the outstanding business graduate in 1943 when she finished. And Swift and Company, which is an agricultural-based company, offered a job each year to the top business graduate from Tarleton. And my mom was the first one to get it in 1943, and she worked in agribusiness for the rest of her career.
You come from a long line of strong, bold women. And the cool thing, this is the Bleed Purple podcast, that have ties to Tarleton State University. That's awesome.
Tarleton, created where I came from and created where I could go and where my children can go. And how could you not bleed purple when so many doors were opened because of our education here?
We like to call that a drop the mic moment, Kari Haile. That was good. Or a golden nugget, or whatever you want to call it. To talk about your kiddos and when they were deciding where to go to school. Was it like a no-brainer, Tarleton, without a doubt, or were they like, hey, we want to get away like Mom did for a little bit, and then they came back? How did that all play out?
Well, my older son, Jay Wiley, was a baseball player, had the opportunity to play at Navarro College, so he went there. And then when he finished playing ball, he came here. And there wasn't, I don't think, much thought as to, he went to Navarro to play ball, but then he came here to go to Tarleton. And then my younger son, John Rex, never even talked about going anywhere else. He just, was ready to come here. And he's in the Army now and will come back to finish school. And as we've talked about his opportunity to use his GI Bill, I've said, you can go anywhere. You can go to the University of Hawaii. They'll pay, the GI Bill works there. And he said, I want to finish at Tarleton like everybody else in our family.
Whoa. That's cool. I think it's funny that you were pushing him to go to a different school, University of Hawaii, but he wanted to come back here.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have a saying written down at home, and it says, hold close with open hands. And, I think you've got to give your children the opportunity to fly, and hopefully you create the environment they want to come back to.
Well, it sounds like you have, Kari Haile.
I'll put a mark in the win column there.
That's definitely a win. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Last question for you. Now, you've alluded to it throughout our conversation here, but if I let you get off this podcast without asking you this question specifically, I wouldn't be doing my job. Okay. What do you love about Tarleton State University?
Ooh. What do I not love might have been an easier question, but there used to be a professor here named Carl Chumney. And Mr. Chumney taught in the ag department, and you could create a series of podcasts just on Chumney stories because anybody who came through here while he was here has one to tell. But he loved Tarleton tradition and Tarleton history, and he would take us on tours through the campus and show us the JTAC hearts and show us the cannon and talk about how many trees were on campus and show us the buildings and, tell us what happened where. And I love that. I love that it's not just a landscaping project, but there's a tree for every county. I love that it's not just rock work, but those JTAC hearts are still there to go by and look at. And no matter how much we grow and improve and expand in this golden age, the traditions are still here. And the poo and the plowboys. And every time you see those, it doesn't matter if you're about to turn 60, there's a part of you that feels 18 again. And it's so good to have a place where you can go through the gates in your home.
Now, as people listen to the Bleed Purple podcast, they're going to pick up on this real quick. I'll say I have one more question, then I have a couple more. I have one more question for you. What's your favorite tradition at Tarleton?
I love the rising, trying to raise Oscar P. I love standing with one finger raised, singing the song with everyone. I miss the homecoming dance. Maybe we can bring it back.
Tell me about the homecoming dance. Oof. Why is that near and dear to you?
Oh, just so much fun. I mean, it was open to students and alumni when I was in school here. And it was so small. We knew upperclassmen and we knew people, they'd come home for homecoming. And then it was out at the Equine Center and everybody would go out there and dance and you got to catch up. And I always say, and my son didn't believe me, I can look at a dance floor full of people in another town and I can tell you if somebody went to Tarleton because we can dance here at Tarleton. And my son didn't believe me, and we were in Fort Worth over in the stockyards one night, and there was a gentleman dancing, and I told my son, I said, he went to Tarleton. And Jay Wiley looked at me like, you were so full of it, Mom. And when the couple came off the dance floor, I said, excuse me, you look so familiar. Did you go to Tarleton? And he said, yes, I did. I said, I knew it. He doesn't question me anymore.
Because we can dance at Tarleton. I love it. Kari Haile on Bleed Purple, the official community podcast, Tarleton State University. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Drew Myers. Again, this is the Bleed Purple podcast, telling the story of Tarleton State University through the stories of the people who bleed purple. Thank you so much for listening. See you. Bleed Purple. Bye.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Doug McLemore is the founder of McLemore Financial Group and a proud Tarleton graduate and supporter. The company specializes in providing personalized financial planning and investment strategies tailored just for you. Whether you're saving for retirement, planning for your child's education, or seeking to grow your wealth, their experienced advisors are here to guide you every step of the way. You can find them at 1529 West Lingleville Road in Stephenville, or on the web at McLemoreGroup.com, or give them a call at 254-968-1020 to schedule your free consultation. McLemore Financial Group is your partner in financial success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through McLemore Financial Group, a DBA of Advisor Resource Council, a registered investment advisor. McLemore Financial Group and Advisor Resource Council are separate entities from LPL Financial.